Millionaire loses his memory and his housekeeper pretends to be his wife. He's horrified when he discovers the truth behind it. Subscribe to the channel to receive all our moving stories. Perched atop a hill, guarded by imposing wrought iron gates and surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens, stood the majestic mansion of millionaire Andrew Morgan. From the outside, the property was the very picture of success and opulence, but its marble walls concealed a very different reality. Andrew, a 45-year-old businessman with an elegant bearing and piercing gaze, had built a financial empire that was the envy of many. However, his personal life was an emotional desert. Married for 10 years to Victoria, a stunning 35-year-old woman, their marriage had become a facade, an alliance of convenience maintained for appearances. One spring morning, as the sun began to peak over the horizon, a solitary figure walked along the path leading to the mansion. It was Emily Sanders, a 28-year-old woman of humble origins, arriving for her first day of work as a housekeeper at the Morgan residence. Emily, with her chestnut hair tied back in a simple ponytail and dressed in modest but clean clothes, paused for a moment to admire the imposing structure. Her eyes, a warm honey color, reflected a mixture of nervousness and determination. This job represented a unique opportunity for her, a way to escape the economic precariousness that had marked her life until then. Upon reaching the main door, she was greeted by Martha, the housekeeper, an elderly woman with a stern face but kind eyes. "Welcome, Emily," Martha said firmly. "Follow me. I'll show you your responsibilities." As they walked through the marble hallways and luxuriously decorated rooms, Emily couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the opulence surrounding her. Every corner of the mansion exuded wealth, from the paintings by famous artists to the exclusive designer furniture. "Your main task will be to keep the east wing of the mansion spotless," Martha explained. "That includes Mr. and Mrs. Morgan's master suite. You must be extremely careful and discreet. The Morgans value their privacy highly." Emily nodded, absorbing every word. She was determined to do a good job, aware of how much depended on this opportunity. As Martha continued with the instructions, Emily couldn't help but notice a certain tension in the atmosphere. The servants moved cautiously, speaking in whispers, as if they feared disturbing some delicate balance. Passing by a half-open door, Emily caught a glimpse of an elegant woman sitting in front of a vanity. It was Victoria Morgan, the millionaire's wife. Despite her undeniable beauty, there was something in her expression that disturbed Emily. A mixture of coldness and discontent that contrasted with the wealth surrounding her. Continuing with the tour, they reached Andrew Morgan's office. The door was closed, but angry voices could be heard from inside. "You can't go on like this, Andrew." The female voice, presumably Victoria's, sounded exasperated. "This obsession with work is destroying us." "Destroying what exactly, Victoria?" The male voice, deep and controlled, responded with a hint of bitterness. "We both know this marriage is just a facade." Martha coughed uncomfortably and hurried Emily away from there. "Remember, Emily," she said in a low voice, "in this house, hear, see, and stay silent is the golden rule." At the end of the tour, Emily was left alone in the small room that would be her bedroom during her stay at the mansion's sitting. On the bed, she reflected on everything she had seen and heard in just a few hours. The Morgan mansion, with all its grandeur, seemed to be a nest of secrets and unresolved tensions. Emily couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. All that wealth, and yet unhappiness seemed to permeate every corner. As she unpacked her few belongings, Emily promised herself to stay out of the family's problems. She was there to work, to build a better future for herself. She couldn't afford to get involved in the dramas of the rich. However, fate had other plans for Emily. What she didn't know was that her arrival at the Morgan mansion was about to trigger a series of events that would forever change the lives of all its inhabitants. As the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky in golden and pink hues, Emily looked out the window of her room towards the extensive gardens of the property. A shiver ran down her spine, as if somehow she could sense that her life was about to take an unexpected turn. In the master suite, Andrew Morgan poured himself a glass of whiskey, his face reflecting years of loneliness and disillusionment. In another wing of the mansion, Victoria was planning her next escapade with her secret lover, and in the midst of all this, Emily, unknowingly, was preparing to become the catalyst that would set in motion a story of love, betrayal, and redemption. Night fell over the Morgan mansion, and with it, the curtain rose for the first act of a drama that would keep everyone on edge until the very end. Dawn arrived at the Morgan mansion, bringing with it the promise of a new day and, unbeknownst to anyone yet, the beginning of a chain of events that would change the lives of all its inhabitants. Emily woke up early, determined to prove her worth from the very first moment she dressed in her freshly ironed uniform and headed to the kitchen, where Martha was already preparing breakfast for the Morgans. "Good morning, Emily," Martha greeted with a nod of approval upon seeing her punctuality. "Today you'll start with cleaning the master bathroom. Remember absolute discretion." Emily nodded and headed to the east wing of the mansion, where the Morgan's suite was located. As she entered the luxurious bathroom, she was momentarily dazzled by the splendor surrounding her Italian marble, gold fixtures, a bathtub that looked more like a small pool. Everything exuded an almost obscene luxury. As she meticulously cleaned each surface, Emily couldn't help but think about the conversation she had overheard the day before between Mr. and Mrs. Morgan. How was it possible that in the midst of such opulence there could be so much unhappiness? Suddenly something caught her attention. On the edge of the bathtub, almost hidden by a silk towel, lay a necklace that took Emily's breath away. It was an exquisite piece, a cascade of rubies set in white gold that shimmered like drops of blood under the morning light. With trembling hands, Emily picked up the necklace. Never in her life had she held something so valuable. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to dream. What would it be like to wear a jewel like this? How would it feel to attend one of those galas they talked about in magazines, wearing a designer dress and jewelry that cost more than everything she owned? She was so absorbed in her thoughts that she didn't hear the approaching footsteps. Suddenly the bathroom door burst open, startling her. There in the doorway stood Andrew Morgan. The millionaire looked like he had had a rough night. His usually impeccable hair was disheveled, and his reddened eyes denoted a mixture of exhaustion and intoxication. He looked at Emily with confusion, as if he couldn't focus properly. "Victoria," he mumbled, taking a stumbling step towards Emily. "Victoria, my love, what are you doing here so early?" Emily froze, the necklace still in her hands. She wanted to explain, to say that she wasn't Victoria, that she was just cleaning, but the words refused to come out of her mouth. Andrew moved closer, his gaze fixed on the necklace. "Ah, you found the gift," he said with a sad smile. "I know things have been tense between us lately, but I want you to know that I love you, Victoria. I've always loved you." Before Emily could react, Andrew took her by the shoulders and pulled her towards him. For a moment, it seemed like he was going to kiss her, and Emily felt her heart leap out of her chest. Just then, a shrill scream broke the morning silence. What the hell is going on here? In the bathroom doorway, with an expression of absolute fury, stood Victoria Morgan. Her eyes darted from Andrew to Emily, and then to the necklace in the young employee's hands. "Drop that immediately, you thief!" Victoria screamed, advancing towards Emily with her hands extended like claws. The confusion on Andrew's face intensified. He looked at Victoria, then at Emily, and back to Victoria. "But what?" he stammered, clearly disoriented. In that moment of chaos, Andrew took a step back, tripping over the edge of the bathroom rug. Everything seemed to move in slow motion as the millionaire lost his balance and fell backward, hitting his head against the edge of the marble bathtub with a thud that chilled Emily's blood. Andrew, Victoria, and Emily shouted in unison, momentarily forgetting their confrontation. Andrew lay motionless on the bathroom floor, a trickle of blood beginning to form under his head. Emily, acting on instinct, knelt beside him, checking his pulse with trembling fingers. "He's unconscious," she exclaimed. "We need to call an ambulance." Victoria, however, seemed more concerned about the necklace than her husband. "Give me that," she hissed, snatching the jewel from Emily's hands. Then, as if suddenly remembering the gravity of the situation, she shouted, "Martha, call emergency services." The following minutes were a whirlwind of activity. The ambulance arrived in record time, and Andrew was transferred to the nearest hospital. Victoria insisted on accompanying him, leaving Emily at the mansion, stunned and confused. Martha approached her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, child," she said softly. "It wasn't your fault, but it's best you stay away from Mrs. Morgan for a while." Emily nodded, unable to speak. Her mind replayed the morning's events over and over: the necklace, Andrew's confusion, Victoria's fury, and then the accident. How could everything have changed so quickly? Meanwhile, at the hospital, doctors struggled to stabilize Andrew. Victoria waited in the waiting room, her face a mask of concern for the passing nurses, but her thoughts were far from her injured husband. If Andrew dies, she thought, caressing the ruby necklace in her purse, I'll inherit everything. But if he survives, if he remembers what he saw. Her mind began to work, planning her next move. Back at the mansion, Emily sat in her small room, her hands still shaking. She knew she should be grateful for not having lost her job on the spot, but she couldn't shake the feeling, and that something bigger was at stake. The necklace, Victoria's reaction. There were secrets in this house, dangerous secrets. As the sun reached its zenith, the Morgan mansion sank into a tense silence. No one knew what the future would bring, but everyone felt that nothing would ever be the same. And in the midst of all this, Emily, unknowingly, had become a key piece in a game that was just beginning to unfold. The young woman looked out the window towards the city that stretched beyond the walls of the property. For a moment, she considered fleeing, leaving behind this world of wealth and deception. But something held her back, a mixture of curiosity, compassion, and although she didn't want to admit it, a spark of something more when she remembered Andrew's confused but tender gaze. Fate had set its gears in motion, and Emily, without knowing it, was about to embark on an adventure that would change her life forever. The rhythmic sound of the heart monitor filled the hospital room where Andrew Morgan lay unconscious. 3 days had passed since the accident, and although doctors assured that his condition was stable, uncertainty about his recovery hung in the air. Like a dark cloud, Victoria had established a permanent camp in the hospital room, perfectly playing the role of the devoted wife before the nurses and doctors. However, in moments of solitude, her mind worked frenetically, weighing the possibilities and risks she would face depending on the outcome of Andrew's situation. Meanwhile, at the Morgan mansion, life continued in a state of suspension. The servants moved silently as if they feared disturbing the delicate balance that had been established. Emily, for her part, struggled with a whirlwind of emotions. Guilt for her, involuntary role in the accident, concern for Andrew's condition, and a growing uneasiness about the secrets that seemed to lurk in every corner of the house. It was on the afternoon of the 4th day when everything changed. Andrew Morgan opened his eyes. The doctor on duty was the first to notice. He quickly called Victoria, who rushed into the room, her face a perfect mask of relief and love. "Andrew, my love," she exclaimed, taking his hand. "Thank God you're awake." But the look in Andrew's eyes was not one of recognition. He looked at Victoria with confusion, then at the doctor, and finally around the room. Where am I?" he asked in a hoarse voice. The doctor approached, his voice calm and professional. "Mr. Morgan, you're in the hospital. You had an accident at your home and hit your head. You've been unconscious for 4 days. Andrew frowned, clearly struggling. I don't remember any of that. In fact, I don't remember anything." Victoria and the doctor exchanged concerned looks. "Andrew," Victoria said softly, "do you recognize me? I'm Victoria, your wife." Andrew stared at her for a long moment, but there wasn't a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "I don't remember you." The doctor quickly intervened. "Mr. Morgan, it seems you're experiencing amnesia, probably due to the blow to your head. Don't worry, it's common in cases like yours. Memory usually returns gradually." As the doctor continued explaining the situation and ordering additional tests, Victoria's mind was working at full speed. Andrew's amnesia presented both opportunities and dangers. On one hand, it meant he didn't remember the compromising scene in the bathroom. On the other hand, it also meant he didn't remember their marriage, their life together, or the financial arrangements they had made. "I need to make some calls," Victoria said, excusing herself from the room. Once in the hallway, she pulled out her phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. "Robert," she said in a low voice, "we have a situation. Andrew has woken up, but he has amnesia. I need you to come to the hospital immediately. We need to act fast." Back at the mansion, Emily learned of the news of Andrew's awakening through the excited whispers of the other servants. Her heart leaped with relief, but that feeling was quickly replaced by one of apprehension. What would Andrew remember about the day of the accident? Martha, noticing the paleness on Emily's face, approached her. "Child," she said softly, "whatever you're thinking, let it go. The best thing you can do now is focus on your work and stay away from the Morgans' affairs." Emily nodded, but in the back of her mind, an idea was beginning to form. Maybe, just maybe, this was her opportunity to uncover the truth behind the mysterious ruby necklace and the strange dynamics between Andrew and Victoria. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Andrew looked out the window of his room, his mind a bewildering void. He didn't recognize the city sprawling before him, nor did he feel any connection to the woman who claimed to be his wife. It was as if he had awakened into someone else's life. Who am I really? He silently wondered, not knowing that this question would trigger a series of events that would shake the foundations of his world and everyone around him. At that moment, the door to his room opened and Emily timidly entered, carrying a bouquet of flowers. Andrew turned to look at her, and for an instant, a flash of something, recognition, familiarity, crossed his eyes. "Hello," Emily said softly. "I don't know if you remember me. I'm Emily. I work at your house." Andrew stared at her, a strange sense of déjà vu taking hold of him. "Emily," he repeated, savoring the name. "No, I don't remember you, but for some reason I'm glad to see you." That simple exchange, those few words, would be the catalyst for a series of events that would change the course of their lives forever. Unbeknownst to them, Andrew, Emily and Victoria were about to embark on a dangerous game of deception, desires and rediscovery, where appearances would deceive and hearts would be put to the test. The days following Andrew's awakening were a whirlwind of activity. The hospital became a constant coming and going of doctors, nurses, and of course Victoria, who had assumed the role of devoted wife with a fervor that surprised. Even those who knew her, Andrew, for his part, felt like a stranger in his own skin. Each day brought new revelations about his life, his career, his fortune, but none of it resonated with him. It was as if they were telling him the story of someone else. One afternoon, while Victoria had gone out to attend to some urgent matters, Emily slipped into Andrew's room. She carried with her a photo album she had found in the mansion. "Mr. Morgan," she said softly, "I thought this might help you remember." Andrew looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and something else, something he couldn't name, but that made his heart beat a little faster. "Thank you, Emily, and please, call me Andrew. After all, I don't remember being that Mr. Morgan everyone talks about." Emily sat down next to the bed and opened the album, page after page. She showed him images of his life. His wedding to Victoria, trips around the world, luxurious parties. But for Andrew, it was like looking at a stranger's life. "It's curious," he said finally, closing the album. "I see all these photos, but I feel nothing. It's as if I'm watching a movie starring someone who looks like me." Emily looked at him sympathetically. "It must be very difficult for you, she corrected herself. Andrew smiled, the first genuine smile since he had woken up. "You know what's strangest, Emily? Of all the people who have passed through this room in the last few days, you're the only one who makes me feel comfortable, as if I knew you somehow." Emily's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, she considered telling Andrew about the day of the accident, about the necklace, about the confusion that had led to this moment. But before she could say anything, the door burst open. Victoria entered, her face a mask of surprise that quickly transformed into a forced smile. "Emily, dear, I didn't know you were here. Shouldn't you be at the mansion working?" Emily stood up hurriedly, mumbling apologies. As she headed for the door, Andrew called out to her. "Emily, thank you for coming. Your visits mean a lot to me." Victoria observed the exchange with narrowed eyes, her mind working quickly. Once Emily had gone, she turned to Andrew with a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Darling, I have exciting news. The doctors say we can take you home tomorrow. Isn't that wonderful?" Andrew nodded distractedly, his mind still on the conversation with Emily. "Yes, I suppose so." Meanwhile, in a cafe near the hospital, Victoria met with Robert, her secret lover and partner in more than one shady business deal. "The situation is getting complicated, Robert," Victoria said in a low voice. "Andrew doesn't remember anything, which is perfect for our plans, but that maid, Emily, she's spending too much time with him." Robert, an attractive man in his 40s, with an air of barely contained danger, smiled maliciously. "Don't worry, my love, I have an idea that will help us kill two birds with one stone. We'll get Andrew's money and get rid of that annoying maid once and for all." Victoria looked at him with a mixture of admiration and fear. "What do you have in mind?" "Listen carefully," said Robert, leaning forward. "This is what we're going to do." Back at the mansion, Emily sat in her small room, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, she felt guilty for hiding the truth from Andrew. On the other, every time she thought of him, of the way he looked at her, of how he felt comfortable with her, her heart raced. "What am I getting myself into?" she muttered to herself. What Emily didn't know was that she was about to be caught up in a web of intrigue and deception that would test not only her loyalty, but also her heart. The game was just beginning, and the stakes were higher than anyone could imagine. The Morgan mansion, with all its opulence and grandeur, seemed to hold its breath as it waited for its owner's return. The servants, under Martha's strict supervision, worked hard to ensure that every corner was spotless, every object in its perfect place. Emily, for her part, felt a mixture of anticipation and fear. Since that visit to the hospital, she hadn't seen Andrew again, but his words, the way he had looked at her, played over and over in her mind. The sound of tires on gravel announced their arrival. Emily, along with the rest of the staff, lined up at the main entrance to receive the masters of the house. Victoria was the first to get out of the car, her face a mask of marital happiness. Behind her, Andrew emerged slowly, his eyes scanning the facade of the mansion with a mixture of amazement and bewilderment. "Welcome home, my love," said Victoria, taking his arm. "Isn't it wonderful to be back?" Andrew nodded distractedly, his gaze wandering over the faces of the staff until it stopped on Emily. For a moment, a spark of recognition seemed to light up his eyes. "Emily," he said softly, almost to himself. Victoria, noticing the exchange, quickly intervened. "Yes, darling, that's Emily, our new housekeeper. Come on, you must be tired. I'll show you our room." As the couple walked away, Emily couldn't help but notice the way Victoria guided Andrew, almost as if he were a lost child. The scene caused her a twinge of, what? Compassion? Jealousy? She wasn't sure. The following days were a strange dance of forced normality and underlying tension. Victoria dedicated herself to reintroducing Andrew to his life, showing him the house, telling him stories of their past together, introducing him to business partners and friends. For Andrew, each day was a new revelation, but nothing felt truly his. The luxurious rooms, the expensive cars, the bank accounts, with astronomical figures, everything seemed to belong to someone else. One afternoon, while Victoria had gone out to an urgent meeting, Andrew found himself wandering around the mansion. Without realizing it, his steps led him to the service wing, where he ran into Emily, who was cleaning one of the rooms. "Oh, Mr. Morgan," said Emily, surprised. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here." "Please, Emily," said Andrew with a tired smile. "I've told you before, call me Andrew. After all, you seem to be the only person in this house who doesn't expect me to be someone I don't remember being." Emily put down the feather duster she was holding and looked at Andrew sympathetically. "It must be very difficult for you," she said softly. Andrew approached one of the windows, his gaze getting lost in the extensive gardens of the property. "Difficult doesn't begin to describe it, Emily," he said with a sigh. "It's as if I'm living someone else's life. Everyone has expectations about who I should be, how I should act, but I feel no connection to any of this." Emily approached him, hesitating for a moment before placing a comforting hand on his arm. Maybe, you shouldn't pressure yourself so much. Your memories might come back in time." Andrew turned to her, a sad smile on his lips. "What if I don't want them to come back, Emily? What if the man I was before wasn't a good person?" "Why do you say that?" asked Emily, surprised. "I've been reviewing some company documents trying to understand the empire I apparently built," Andrew explained. "And there are things, transactions, agreements that don't seem entirely ethical. I can't help but wonder what kind of man I was to do those things." Emily felt her heart shrink at the evident anguish in Andrew's voice. Without thinking, she took his hand in hers. "The fact that you care about that now says a lot about who you are, Andrew. Maybe this is an opportunity to redefine yourself, to be the man you want to be." For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Andrew looked at Emily, really looked at her, as if he were seeing her for the first time. There was a warmth in his eyes, a connection that went beyond words. "Emily, Andrew began, but was interrupted by the sound of heels in the hallway. Victoria entered the room, her eyes narrowing as she saw Andrew and Emily so close, their hands still intertwined. "Ah, here you are, darling," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I've been looking for you everywhere." Emily quickly released Andrew's hand and took a step back, her face reddening. I was just cleaning, ma'am," she mumbled, avoiding Victoria's accusing gaze. "Yes, well, I'm sure there are other areas of the house that require your attention, Emily," Victoria said in a sharp tone. "Andrew, dear, we have guests for dinner. You should go change." As Emily hurried out of the room, Andrew followed her with his gaze, a sense of loss overtaking him. Victoria, noticing this, linked her arm with her husband's, guiding him out of the room. "Andrew, darling," she said in a honeyed voice, "I know you're going through a difficult time, but you must be careful. The staff? It's not appropriate for them to see you so familiar with them. We have a reputation to maintain." Andrew frowned, something in Victoria's words sounding discordant to him. "Why? What's wrong with being kind to the people who work for us?" Victoria let out a forced laugh. "Oh, Andrew, you're still as naive as ever in our world. Appearances are everything. We can't afford any scandals, especially now that you're indisposed." Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Emily tried to calm the beating of her heart. What had just happened? Why did she feel this way every time she was near Andrew? Martha, noticing her agitation, approached her. "Child," she said in a low voice, "be careful. I've seen how you look at Mr. Andrew. That path only leads to pain." Emily opened her mouth to protest, but Martha silenced her with a look. "Listen to me well, Emily. In this house, the walls have ears and Mrs. Victoria has eyes everywhere. If you value your job, your future, keep your distance." That night, during dinner with the guests, Andrew felt like an actor in a play whose script he didn't know. Victoria carried the conversation, laughing at the right moments, telling anecdotes of their life together that sounded to Andrew like stories of a stranger. At one point during the evening, while Victoria was distracted, Robert, one of the guests, approached Andrew. "It's good to see you recovered, old friend," Robert said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I hope you can soon return to business. We have some pending projects that require your attention." Andrew nodded, uncomfortable. There was something about Robert that caused him a feeling of unease, although he couldn't explain why. As the evening progressed, Andrew couldn't help but let his thoughts return to Emily, to the conversation they had had, to the warmth of her hand in his amidst all the luxury and appearances. She seemed to be the only real thing, the only authentic thing in his life. What Andrew didn't know was that, at that very moment, Victoria and Robert were setting in motion a plan that threatened to destroy not only his fortune, but also the fragile connection he was forming with Emily. In the kitchen, as she prepared the dessert trays, Emily struggled with her own conflicting feelings. She knew she should stay away from Andrew, that nothing good could come from these feelings that were growing in her heart. But every time she thought of him, of his sad smile, of the vulnerability he showed only to her. She felt her resolution weakening. "What mess am I getting myself into?" she muttered to herself, not knowing that soon she would be caught up in a storm of secrets, lies, and forbidden passions that threatened to sweep away everything in its path. Days turned into weeks, and life at the Morgan mansion found a new rhythm, albeit one filled with hidden tensions and unexpressed desires. Andrew, still struggling to reconcile his new reality with the fragments of his past that occasionally surfaced, found himself increasingly drawn to Emily, the only person who seemed to see him for who he was now, not for who he was supposed to be. Victoria, for her part, redoubled her efforts to maintain appearances, organizing social events and business meetings in an attempt to restore normalcy. However, beneath her facade of devoted wife, her plans with Robert advanced stealthily one afternoon. As Andrew was reviewing documents in his study, a yellow envelope caught his attention. He didn't remember seeing it before, and curiosity got the better of him. Upon opening it, he found a series of photographs that left him breathless. The images showed Victoria in compromising situations with Robert, in different places and moments. Andrew's heart raced, a mixture of shock and a strange sense of relief flooding him. Was this what his marriage had been? Lost in his thoughts, he didn't notice that Emily had entered the study to bring him some tea. "Andrew?" she called softly, noticing his disturbed expression. "Is everything all right?" Andrew looked up, his eyes meeting Emily's. For a moment, he considered hiding the truth from her, but something in her compassionate gaze prompted him to trust her. "Emily," he said hoarsely, "I think I just discovered that my wife has been cheating on me." Emily dropped the tray she was carrying, the sound of breaking porcelain resonating in the room. "Oh, Andrew," she murmured, approaching him. "I'm so sorry." Without thinking, Andrew stood up and hugged her, seeking comfort in her warmth. Emily, surprised at first, returned the embrace, her heart beating fast. "What am I going to do, Emily?" Andrew whispered against her hair. "My whole life seems to be a lie." Emily gently pulled away, her hands still on Andrew's arms. "Perhaps," she said cautiously, "this is an opportunity to discover who you really are without the expectations of your past." Andrew looked at her, a new resolution forming in his eyes. "You're right," he said. "I need answers, and I think I know where to start, looking for them." What neither of them knew was that Victoria, alerted by the sound of broken porcelain, had arrived at the study just in time to witness their embrace. With a face pale with fury, she silently retreated, her mind already plotting how to use this information to her advantage. That night, as the mansion slept, Andrew slipped out of the bed he shared with Victoria, heading to his study. He turned on his computer, determined to unravel the secrets of his past and the shady business he had discovered. Hour after hour, Andrew delved into files and emails, uncovering a network of deceptions and illegal transactions that left him horrified. How could he have been part of something like this? Meanwhile, in her small room, Emily couldn't sleep. The memory of the embrace with Andrew, the warmth of his body, the pain in his eyes, it all swirled in her mind. She knew she was walking on dangerous ground, that her feelings for Andrew could cost her not only her job, but much more. But for the first time in her life, she felt she had found someone who really saw her, who valued her opinion and her presence. In another part of the city, Robert received an urgent call from Victoria. "Things are getting complicated," Victoria hissed over the phone. "Andrew is starting to ask questions, and that damn maid is getting closer and closer to him. We need to accelerate our plan." Robert smiled maliciously. "Don't worry, my love, I have something that will put that meddler in her place and give us total control over Andrew and his fortune." The next morning, the Morgan mansion woke up to news that shook its foundations. The ruby necklace, the valuable family jewel that had disappeared on the day of Andrew's accident, had been found among Emily's belongings. Chaos erupted. Victoria, feigning indignation and pain, ordered Emily's immediate arrest. Andrew, confused and hurt, didn't know what to believe. Could the woman he had started to trust, the only one who seemed to understand him, really be a thief? As the police escorted a tearful Emily out of the mansion, her eyes met Andrew's. At that moment, a spark of recognition, a fragment of memory flashed in Andrew's mind. He remembered the day of his accident, the bathroom, the necklace, and the confusion that had led him to mistake Emily for Victoria. With his heart racing, Andrew knew he had to act fast. Emily was innocent, and now he remembered enough to know that the real threats were closer than he thought. As the police car drove away, Andrew made a decision. He was going to get to the bottom of this, uncover the truth about his past, clear Emily's name, and, in the process, maybe find a new direction for his future. What he didn't know was that Victoria and Robert, seeing their plans begin to crumble, were prepared to take drastic measures. The battle for truth, love, and redemption was just beginning, and no one in the Morgan mansion would come out unscathed from the approaching storm. The Morgan mansion, once a symbol of opulence and power, now stood as a fortress of secrets about to be revealed. Andrew, with determination shining in his eyes, locked himself in his study, determined to unravel the tangle of lies surrounding his life. Meanwhile, in a cold and austere cell, Emily fought against tears and despair. She knew she was innocent, but how could she prove it? Her thoughts returned again and again to Andrew, to the look of doubt in his eyes when the police took her away. Would he believe in her innocence? Victoria, for her part, moved through the mansion with calculated calm, her face a perfect mask of concern and sadness. But in the privacy of her room, a smile of triumph curved her lips. With Emily out of the way and Andrew mired in confusion, her plan seemed to be bearing fruit. However, fate had other plans. Andrew, immersed in his investigation, began to connect the dots. Encrypted emails, suspicious bank transfers, secret meetings, everything pointed to an elaborate network of fraud and corruption. And at the center of it all, to his horror, were Victoria and Robert. It was then that a memory, sharp and painful, shot through his mind like lightning. The day of the accident, the ruby necklace, the confusion. Everything suddenly made sense. Emily wasn't the thief. She was the victim of an elaborate trap. With his heart pounding, Andrew realized that he not only had to clear Emily's name, but also face the harsh reality of his marriage and his past. Meanwhile, in the police station cell, Emily received an unexpected visit. Martha, the housekeeper, had arrived with news. "Child," Martha whispered, her voice trembling, "there's something you need to know. The night before you were arrested, I saw Mrs. Victoria talking to that man, Robert, in the garden. They were discussing a plan, something about framing you and taking control of Mr. Andrew's fortune." Emily's eyes widened. "Martha, are you sure?" The old woman nodded solemnly. "As sure as I'm standing here. I've served the Morgan family for decades, and I never thought I'd see the day when I'd have to betray their trust. But what they're doing, it's not right." With renewed hope, Emily knew she had to find a way to get this information to Andrew. Back at the mansion, Andrew decided it was time to confront Victoria. He found her in the living room, apparently immersed in sadness. "Victoria," he said, his voice cold as ice, "I think we need to talk." Victoria looked up, a perfectly rehearsed expression of innocence on her face. "What's wrong, darling? Have you remembered something else?" "Oh, yes," Andrew replied, his eyes fixed on her. "I've remembered many things, like, for example, your affair with Robert." The color drained from Victoria's face. "Andrew, I can explain." "Can you?" Andrew interrupted. "Can you also explain the illegal transfers, the bribes, the fraud? Can you explain why you tried to frame an innocent woman for the theft of a necklace that you yourself hid?" Victoria jumped to her feet, all pretense of innocence abandoned. "You don't understand anything," she shouted. "Everything I've done, I did for us, for our future." "No, Victoria," Andrew said, his voice laden with disappointment and contained rage. "You did it for yourself, and it's over." At that moment, the doorbell rang. Andrew, without taking his eyes off Victoria, shouted for one of the servants to open it. Seconds later, 2 police officers entered the living room. "Victoria Morgan," said one. "Of the officers, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and false testimony." As the police read Victoria her rights, a stunned Andrew rushed out of the mansion. He had an important stop to make. At the police station, Emily was about to be released. The charges against her had been dropped thanks to Martha's testimony and the evidence provided by Andrew. As she stepped out onto the street, with the afternoon sun bathing her face, she saw a familiar figure waiting for her. Andrew was there, a mixture of regret and hope in his eyes. "Emily," he said softly, "I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you from the beginning." Emily looked at him, her emotions conflicted. On one hand, the pain of being unjustly accused was still fresh. On the other, her heart raced at seeing Andrew there waiting for her. "Andrew," she finally responded, "you've been through a lot, we both have, but I'm grateful that you discovered the truth." Andrew took a step towards her, gently taking her hands in his. "Emily, throughout all this time, you've been the only real person in my life, the only one who has seen me for who I am, not for who I was supposed to be. I know I've made mistakes, that there's a lot I need to fix in my life and in my business, but if you give me the chance, I'd like to do it with you by my side." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Andrew, But before she could respond, a heart-wrenching scream broke the moment. "Andrew!" Victoria, handcuffed and being escorted to a patrol car, had seen them. Her face was contorted with rage and desperation. "This isn't over," she shouted as the officers pushed her into the vehicle. "I'll have my revenge, I swear." Andrew and Emily silently watched as the car drove away, taking Victoria and, with her, the last vestiges of Andrew's turbulent past. "Well," said Andrew, turning to Emily with a shy smile, "I guess that means I'm officially divorced." Emily couldn't help but laugh despite the tension of the moment. "Certainly. It's a unique way to end a marriage." Andrew took Emily's hand again, his gaze serious but full of hope. "Emily, I know we've been through a lot, and I understand if you need time, but I want you to know that, whatever happens, I'm grateful to have you in my life." Emily looked at him, seeing not the powerful millionaire but the vulnerable and authentic man she had come to know and love. "Andrew," she said softly, "I think we both deserve a fresh start. How about we begin with dinner?" Andrew smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his face. "That sounds perfect to me." As they walked together down the street, towards an uncertain but possibility-filled future, they both knew that, although the road wouldn't be easy, they would face it together. What they didn't know was that in a prison cell, Victoria was already planning her revenge, and that the shadows of Andrew's past still had secrets to reveal. But for now, in that perfect moment, nothing else mattered but the beginning of their story together. The following months were a whirlwind of changes for Andrew and Emily, with Victoria behind bars and Robert on the run from justice. Andrew dedicated himself to unraveling the web of corruption that had enveloped his businesses. It was a painful and exhausting process involving countless meetings with lawyers, investigators, and authorities. Emily, true to her word, remained by his side throughout the process. Her presence was an anchor for Andrew, a constant reminder of the person he wanted to be, of the man he was becoming. One spring afternoon, almost a year after the dramatic events that had changed their lives, Andrew and Emily were walking through the gardens of the Morgan mansion. The place had changed as much as they had. It was no longer the opulent symbol of power and wealth, but a warm and welcoming home. "You know, I never thought I'd say this," Andrew commented, looking around, "but I think I prefer the mansion this way, less ostentatious, more homey." Emily smiled, gently squeezing Andrew's hand. "It's because it now reflects who you really are, not who you thought you should be." Andrew stopped, turning to look at Emily. "You're right, and it's thanks to you, Emily. You've helped me rediscover myself, to be a better version of myself." "Andrew," Emily responded, her eyes shining with emotion, "you've done the same for me. You've shown me a world I never thought could be part of my life, not just of luxuries but of possibilities, of making a real difference." Andrew smiled, remembering how Emily had insisted on using part of his fortune to establish a foundation that helped low-income youth access quality education. It was her way of giving back to society, of using their privilege to do good. "Emily," Andrew said, his voice soft but full of determination, There's something I've wanted to ask you for a long time. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Yes? Andrew knelt before her, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Emily Sanders, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Not as the millionaire Andrew Morgan, but as the man I am now. The man you've helped me become. Tears sprang from Emily's eyes. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. As Andrew slid the ring onto her finger, a simple but elegant gold band with a small diamond, they both felt they had finally found their place in the world, by each other's side. The news of their engagement spread quickly. The press, which had closely followed the Morgan scandal, now painted a story of redemption and true love. The modern Cinderella, as some newspapers called Emily, and the reformed millionaire became the talk of society. However, not everything was rosy. In the state prison, Victoria received the news with cold, calculated fury. Her revenge plan, long in the making, was almost ready. She just needed a little more time. Meanwhile, in a far-off country, Robert read the news of the engagement in a local newspaper. A sinister smile spread across his face. "Enjoy it while you can," he muttered to himself, "because this isn't over yet." Oblivious to these latent threats, Andrew and Emily immersed themselves in their wedding preparations. They decided it would be an intimate ceremony, just with their closest friends. Martha, who had become a maternal figure for both of them, would be the matron of honor. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and radiant. Emily, dressed in a simple but elegant white dress, waited in a small chapel next to the mansion. Andrew, handsome in his dark suit, waited for her at the altar, his face illuminated by a smile of pure happiness. When Emily began her walk down the aisle, their gazes met, and the world seemed to fade away around them. At that moment, only they existed, their love, and the promise of a future together. "I, Andrew, take you, Emily, as my wife," Andrew said, his voice full of emotion. "I promise to love you, respect you, and support you all our days together. I promise to be the man you deserve, and to build with you a life full of love, understanding, and happiness." Emily, with tears of joy in her eyes, responded, "I, Emily, take you, Andrew, as my husband. I promise to stand by your side in good times and bad, to be your companion, your friend, and your love. I promise to help you be the best version of yourself, just as you help me be the best version of myself." When the priest declared them husband and wife and Andrew kissed Emily, the applause and cheers of their friends filled the chapel. It was a moment of pure joy, the beginning of a new life together. At the reception, as Andrew and Emily shared their first dance as husband and wife, Martha watched them with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. "Who would have thought," she muttered to herself, "that from all that tragedy something so beautiful would emerge?" As the night progressed, Andrew and Emily slipped away from the party, heading to a quiet corner of the garden under the moonlight. They embraced, aware of how far they had come and excited about the future that awaited them. "I love you, Emily Morgan," Andrew whispered, savoring his wife's new last name. "And I love you, Andrew Morgan," Emily responded, her heart overflowing with happiness. As they kissed under the stars, they both knew that no matter what the future held for them, they would face it together, with the love and trust they had built overcoming all adversities. What they didn't know was that, in the shadows, dark forces were already moving, threatening to disturb their newly found happiness. But that is another story.